Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for being here. We're going to get started with today's formal meeting of the Phoenix City Council for October 28th, 2015. Looks like we got a quorum of the City Council present. We're going to begin today's meeting with an invocation. Our invocation today will be given by Pastor Wesley Smith from Grace Walk Church. So if you can, Pastor Smith, come forward. Everyone else, if you can, please stand.
Let us pray. Eternal God, full of grace and truth, we ask your blessing upon this meeting today, this assembly, this agenda, and we ask and humbly pray that you would guide our hearts today, and that you would guide our thoughts today. And this we humbly pray. Amen. And amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor, very much. The Pledge of Allegiance will now be led by Councilwoman Laura Pastor.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Would the city clerk please call the roll?
Councilman DeCiccio. Councilwoman Gallego.
Here.
Councilman Gates. Councilman Nowakowski.
Here.
Councilwoman Pastor.
Here.
Councilman Waring. Councilwoman Williams.
Here.
Vice Mayor Valenzuela. Mayor Stanton.
Here. We have Judy Holm, our interpreter, with us. Please introduce yourself to the audience.
Buenas tardes, me llamo Judy, soy intérprete de español. Si alguien necesita el equipo, por favor venga conmigo o con el personal de la ciudad. Gracias.
Thank you very much. We now have citizen comments as part of our agenda. According to the City Council rules, we'll take 15 minutes now of citizen comment. If there are additional citizens here who wish to provide commentary to the City Council, we will do that at the completion of the regular formal agenda, and that'll be the last item on the agenda as well. The first speaker under citizen comment will be Mr. Pat Vint. Mr. Vint, are you here? Good to see you. You'll have up to 3 minutes of comments.
Mayor,
Pat, you're up.
Mayor, as Pat's coming up, I'd like to recognize Council Member Sam Chavera from Glendale is present with us today.
Good morning. No, it's afternoon, I think. I lost time. Anyway, I want to apologize for not being here for the last 4 months. I took off to see if I could find another city in the United States that was anywhere close to Phoenix, Arizona. I found a couple. One was San Francisco. They let out criminals to kill citizens. Phoenix comes second. You're a sanctuary city also. But anyway, I can't thank Dustin Gardner from the Phoenix Republic that he wrote an article, I thought maybe just for me, and it really spells out exactly how we do not have a mayor in the city of Phoenix. None of you, and I'm sad to say this, but I want to spell it out, that you're not accountable or responsible for anything. At least if we had a strong mayor, that it was a mayor-type government, at least the mayor would be accountable, and we could whip him if we wanted to out behind a barn. That's the way I learned my lesson. I was born on a farm, a dairy farm in Omaha, Nebraska, where you had to work. So I learned to work. And I learned how to get as old as I am. I made it back to Phoenix before October 4th so I could celebrate my 85th birthday. Nobody showed up. They said, "You're a mean SOB." I said, "I know that. I know that. That's why I'm 85 years old. And I'll end up being 120. Very easy. And I'll be here every week that you're here from now on. I got this little power scooty here that's a wonderful thing. I bought one for my wife too, but she won't ride it yet. She's only 83. Anyway, all of you have to pass out this letter and talk to all of your constituents, if that's what you call them, that the city of Phoenix has to change. We need a system that's for the citizens, for the people, not just for you people. And it spreads all the way back to Washington, D.C. I was going to go there, but I knew if I did, I'd be in trouble because I'd have to kick everybody's fanny that I could find. It doesn't matter what party they are, they're all criminals. All they want is the votes. And I'm sorry to say that a lot of you people here don't care either other than the votes. But the two people that wrote for the type of government we have, I won't say your names because you know who you are, you copied each other's letter. But the one that Sal DeCiccio wrote up here on the top corner is wonderful. Thanks, Sal. We might not be on the same side all the time, just like we're not on the same side with the mayor here, but we're going to be because I'm not going to fight him anymore. I'm going to be on your side, Greg.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Vinton. Happy birthday. Your 3 minutes are up. We're up to the next speaker. The next speaker will be Diane Barker, up to 3 minutes of commentary. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Mayor Stanton and Phoenix City Council, Diane Barker. And I wanted to bring up the fact that we're downtown. Maybe some of us did use alternative transportation. Most people have Plan A. Put it in your ignition and go in your car. But we're moving into a time that even Maricopa Association Governments, the mayors met today, are recognizing that biking is more than an avocation because it's bringing people to businesses. And when you get the mayor from Scottsdale to, support that, you know that we have more people riding. Matter of fact, my school, Ohio State, has a big following there in Scottsdale. We had over 2,000 people for the Penn State game, and this gal said to me, well, where are you going to park? And I said, the closest bike rack. So Downtown Phoenix Partnership has found that, some of the businesses, restaurants say, we don't have enough bike racks, so we're going to have to look at that. It's been successful to have Meet Me Downtown. It's going to be their birthday, Vice Mayor Council Valenzuela. I hope that you'll be there coming up here in November, and that's on Mondays. People getting together and they walk around downtown. Raffle tickets are given freely, tickets to the Suns and the Diamondbacks, and that's all good. Wanted to talk about what's coming. They says we haven't had enough discussion of this. Normally it's negative. Immigration. And then you get this big flag, oh, these are people we don't want. It's a fact, it's happening worldwide. We have, over 7 billion people? I guess in the coming years we're going to have up in our lifetime 11 billion. We have to address this, folks. And particularly, they say third world countries are growing their population so much more. People are there, they're the ones that are having the babies, and they're migrating into Europe, into the United States. So this will be a big thing. The thing is, we need to embrace diversity. Somebody said as societies, that they get more diverse, they have more problems they can't solve. We need to take it as a benefit. That's what America is about. Now, what we need to do is educate people so that they move out of the big box, lower wages, and they get technical to repair these leaks on our middle-age water and wastewater system that they talked about right here in the city of Phoenix. They can't find the electricians and the skilled labor, the mechanics, and the welders. We can have people that will have a livable wage and won't have to live off of government subsidy, but we need to prepare now. The city of Phoenix has a sustainability person. I haven't heard that much about it, but I really think the people in the city need to put the gas on that. The city, in its report, should be way, way, way ahead in one of the biggest cities in the United States in this.
Thank you very much, Ms. Barker. Kim Baker, you're next. Up to 3 minutes of testimony, followed by Leonard Clark.
Thank you again. I have some documents for you guys. Someone would please. It's 8 of them. Thank you. Once again, I'm here. It's no secret to ask for the resignation of the police chief. What I'm giving you guys is a document, and it's from the city of Tempe. But this also explains why your officer was following me in the city of Tempe. It's unfortunate that they didn't have enough respect for Police Chief Garcia that another police chief can summons them out of their jurisdiction into Tempe. But this is what has gone on here. I gave you that because I wanted you to see, I highlighted on the first page the IR number, which gives you leave to find out what's really going on with a police report. When I go down to the police department, I'm given something totally unrelated to what they allegedly charged me with. I'm okay with that because I know I'm innocent. As I told you, Selma, Arizona, every one of you, that's what you're representing right now. That stinking mentality, traveling thousands of miles here to Arizona. This type of stuff only happens in Arizona, and it's where you get away with it. I don't know why, Ms. Gallego, I sent you an email. I thought you would have the decency, if nothing else, to respond and tell me, no, we can't have a meeting. That was on October 20th. We're on the 28th. I haven't heard a thing from you. And it saddens me. Mr. Mayor, I do want a meeting with you. I'm making it publicly known. If you would be so kind to give me a meeting. And I would like all of you to be there if your schedules would allow. See, I'm an innocent man. I can stand here before you and be just as transparent as I need to be. The reason the police report comes back to an unrelated matter is because they know they arrested the wrong guy. So they solicited your police to help them get me in trouble so that when it did go to court, now you got more dirt on this man. But I told y'all, you may not or you may believe in the Holy Ghost. I do. I know he's real. And he's sustaining me right now to stand before you. Mr. DeCiccio, I want to address to you, if you as gull as you are, won't you take the stands, you, and be the leader in this? Since you defend the police, you have an officer that followed me, and he found out that I was no coward. Now he resigns, he gets off the police department. Why don't you take the stands and let's meet, all of us meet. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Baker. Mr. Leonard Clark, you have up to 3 minutes of testimony.
Thank you, Mayor and Council members. My name is Leonard Clark, and unfortunately, because I wanted to speak on more than my limit of items, surprise, surprise, I do strongly hope you'll vote for the final plat for Banner Good Samaritan, because that's my alma mater. That's the ultimate alma mater. That's where I was born. So anyways, that's my little bias there. You know what? I just want to thank you for letting me speak. I really don't take lightly the privilege, the right of being here, and when there's so many other people around the world that can't. But I do want to bring up some items that you all have heard about, we're all concerned about. One is what's going on with the funding of dash cams, body cameras. I strongly support that for our law enforcement, to protect our people and to protect our law enforcement. I think that this whole problem, this whole tragedy, American tragedy we're having, being that we're the 6th largest city and we have a large number of fatalities, is that we're not looking at this from a sociological, scientific, cultural perspective, and also from our hearts. We had Dr. Whitaker, whom I feel is a good man, but can no longer do the training. You are on the right course of that training. This is not a black and white issue. This is a color television issue. We can't see the world in just 2 colors. We have people being, in my opinion, well, I believe, being profiled because of the color of their skin or how old of a car they drive. And on the other side, I understand our officers are terrified sometimes for their lives. But I feel that the public is frustrated because we were told you were working on dash cams, and we've had them, or body cameras in the Maryville area, but it's been a long time, and now they're going to get $16 million, the law enforcement, for hiring new officers. rather than pit us all against each other, why can't we just work this out? I mean, I know that sounds idealistic. I just don't know why. I know it costs money, but can you please get together a special committee, you probably already have one, and get the dash cams, get the body cameras, appoint a civilian advisory board, like Mr. Montini said in the Arizona Republic, because our system is antiquated, not just here, but around the country, where we have district attorneys who are biased in favor of law enforcement. It's kind of like Deliverance. You get killed killing the hillbillies, you know, in self-defense or whatever, brother or whatever. The judge is his relative, and that's what's going on with our district attorney. So that was one concern I had. Also, parking meters. I realize our business owners want to keep the traffic going, but I really think it hurt our downtown business, and a lot of the people like me who are not in the upper class, money-wise, from coming here when you started charging after 5 o'clock. But again, these are tough economic times, but I strongly urge that you will check into that for me, and thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. I believe we have time for one more. Mr. Rusnick, John Rusnick, up to 3 minutes.
John Rusnick. I'd like to, I gave you people some pictures and information last week. I want to read it, so I'll make sure everybody can hear it. It says property owners are responsible for keeping their properties and adjacent rights-of-way free of dead and dry vegetation. Inoperable vehicle, there was one vehicle that was inoperable there, shall not be visible beyond the property line. Junk litter durbers cannot be left on the property, must be disposed of properly. It includes discarded broken auto parts, furniture, building materials, and landscaping materials. You see on in pictures I give you 3 piles of landscaping material. They had old tires laying in the property. There's old buckets laying on the property. There you go. Properties can be seen beyond the property line. Generally, equipment being landscaping materials, parts, auto parts, appliances, scrap may be visible from the property. And here's the kicker. Design parking and maneuvering areas must be dust-proofed according to specifications. There it is in black and white, right here, parking and maneuvering vehicles anywhere the designated areas. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr.
Just one thing more I'd like to say. I think that the council should direct the manager to take care of this situation that we have. That's what you're here for. That's what the charter calls for. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rusnick. Now we'll move on to the regular formal council agenda. And again, at the end of the meeting, we'll have the opportunity for additional citizen comment. The next portion of the meeting is for the city clerk to read the 24-hour paragraph.
The titles of the following ordinance and resolution numbers on the agenda were available to the public at least 24 hours prior to this council meeting and therefore may be read by title or agenda item only. Ordinances number G6070 through G6072, S42102 through S42121, and resolutions number 21366 to 21368.
Thank you very much. And before we move on to approval of meeting minutes, I'll turn it over to Councilwoman Thilda Williams if she has any comments or statements.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to present this to the mayor and my fellow council members. The City of Phoenix was recognized by the Nature Conservancy in Arizona. We were awarded the 2015 Morris Udall Award for Outstanding Conservation Achievement during this year. So congratulations to all of you. And Mayor, I would like to present this to you.
And let it be known that Felda had the very difficult duty of going to Sedona to accept this award on behalf of the entire city. Tough job. Thank you, Felda, for doing that, Councilman Williams. All right, next is the approval of the meeting minutes. Councilman Pastor, did you have a chance to review the formal meeting minutes from September 30th, 2015?
I did, and I approve the minutes for September 30th, 2015.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Next is boards and commissions. Do we have a motion to approve mayor boards and commission nominations?
Motion to approve mayor's boards and commissions nominations.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. How about city council member board or commission nominations?
Motion to approve city council boards and commissions nominations.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously. We have many members of the community, the public, here to be sworn in to serve in leadership positions in the city, including the Citizen Transit Oversight Committee that will help make policy decisions, important recommendations to this council as it relates to the successful implementation of Proposition 104. Thanks to all of you in advance. I'll come down to you, I'll swear you in, and then afterwards, please come behind the dais so the individual council members can thank you for your service. All right. All right. Please raise your right hand. I, and state your name. Do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution and laws of the state of Arizona, and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same and defend them against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and that I will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties of the office of, fill in your blank.
I was told that you went out.
That wasn't complete, but I'll accept it. According to the best of my ability, so help me God. You're official. Thank you so much for your service.
Congratulations. We'll probably have now a few opportunities. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for serving.
Good.
All right, thanks in advance for your very, very important service to the citizens of Phoenix. Next on the agenda is a suspension of the rules to swear in our municipal court judges who are being hopefully reappointed to the municipal court.
Motion to suspend the rules to swear in the Honorable Cynthia Serta and the Honorable Wilbur Hudson.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So they've already been voted. Please raise your right hand. I, and state your name.
I, Wilbur Hudson,
Do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution and laws of the state of Arizona, and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same
allegiance to the same,
and defend them against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
foreign and domestic,
and that I will faithfully
and that I will faithfully
and impartially
and impartially
discharge the duties
discharge the duties
of the office of,
Phoenix Municipal Court Judge,
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
You're official again. Thanks for your service. Next on the agenda are liquor license applications. Do we have an omnibus motion on liquor license applications?
Motion to approve items 2 through 19, except item 2.
Second.
So 2 through 19,
19, that's
holding out which one?
item 2.
Holding out item 2. We have motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Are there any cards on that item? No cards on that item? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Next on the agenda is item number 2, which staff has recommended for disapproval for T&A Cabaret the Third. Can we get a short staff report on that? And then we'll ask Detective Westfall to come and provide testimony on behalf of the professional staff recommendation. Please.
Mayor, members of the council, my name is Denise Archibald with the City Clerk Department. This request is for an ownership transfer of a license for a topless bar operating as T&A Cabaret 3. This location was previously licensed for liquor sales as Heat Cabaret and is currently operating with an interim permit. Consideration may be given to the applicant's personal qualifications and not to the location. Staff recommends disapproval of this application based on a police department recommendation for disapproval.
Detective Westfall, are you here? Please come forward and provide a testimony why the police department is recommending disapproval of this liquor license.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, Mayor and City Council. Thank you for the time to allow me to speak on this matter. Mr. Bleckman is one of the applicants on the application for a Series 7 liquor application for the T&A Cabaret, located at 2438 East McDowell Road. The police department recommends disapproval on this application based on the applicant's failure to meet the requirements set forth in ARS 4-203. Under the statute, a liquor license shall only be issued to an applicant who demonstrates a satisfactory showing that he is reliable, capable, and qualified to hold a liquor license. In review of the liquor license, Mr. Bleckman has found to have 2 other T&A locations at 3420 South Central Avenue and 3790 West Grand Avenue in the city of Phoenix. According to the Phoenix Police Department records, there have been numerous calls for service to both locations for violent crimes. At 3420 South Central, these calls included a fight where the club failed to protect one of the patrons or to call the police, a customer who was shot in the parking lot after a fight that began inside, 2 employees in the club fighting with each other, and during a 5-day vice enforcement inspection, 6 separate reports of dancers performing sex acts. At the location at 3790 West Grand Avenue, officers responded to calls such as the manager who fired shots into the air in order to break up a fight in the parking lot. This constituted a failure to protect the patrons and an act of violence under Title IV liquor laws. This employee's actions are currently being reviewed by the County Attorney's Office for criminal charges under Shannon's Law. During a vice inspection, a dancer stated to an undercover officer that some of the dancers in the club performed sex acts on the customers. These are just a few examples of the activities occurring at the 2 clubs currently owned by Jason Bleckman. These types of calls for service suggest that there is minimal management oversight and or inadequate training, both of which are the ultimate responsibility of the owner. Or is this maybe a knowing disregard for the law? What is unique about this newest location is that it is located in the Green Gables community, and the parking lot is adjacent to an alley with residential homes. The 2 other locations are located in industrial areas. If the type of calls I described occurred at the new location, there is potential for disruption or even injury to the neighborhood residents. Based on the history of calls for service at Mr. Bleckman's liquor establishments, he has not demonstrated the capability, reliability, and qualifications to responsibly hold another liquor license. For these reasons, the granting of a liquor license for this establishment would not be in the best interest of the community.
Thank you very much. Detective, any questions for Detective Westfall? Councilman Gallego, the applicant is in your district. How would you like to proceed?
Do we have any additional cards?
No, we don't. Oh, we know we don't? But are you the applicant? Yes, sir. Would you like to come testify? Yes, sir. Now would be the time to do so. You have up to 2 minutes to provide testimony. I don't have a card for you, so please state your name and address for the record.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. My name is Jason Bleckman, and the location at hand is 2438 East McDowell Road, which was approved by this city council for a liquor license. After buying the business, I attended the Green Gables Neighborhood Association meeting to meet the neighbors and introduce myself. Well, at this meeting, I was surprised and disappointed that the Councilwoman Gallego and a representative from the police department announced that they were recommending disapproval of the liquor license application transfer without even meeting me or speaking with me at this point in time. I own 2 other successful businesses in the Phoenix area. I've had them for almost 6 years now, one of which, and the other one for several years, and had never been cited for a liquor violation. I do everything the city and liquor board asks of me. For example, all members of my staff, management and staff, are liquor certified. We have weekly management meetings. We have ongoing employee training, and we keep our locations very clean. I started these businesses from the ground up. I've been in the liquor industry in one way or another for 25 years now. And my businesses bring a lot of revenue to surrounding businesses and a lot of tax dollars to the city. I feel obtaining this liquor license transfer would be in the best interest for everyone. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Did you want to address anything that Detective Westfall provided in her testimony? Obviously, there were some very, very serious allegations made against you and your ownership.
To be honest with you, I have not been cited. My businesses have not been cited for anything, and I just got a report from the detective this morning and have not had, well, actually prior to this meeting, and have not had time to go over them, so I can't honestly give you an answer on that.
I appreciate your honesty. Okay, any questions for the applicant? Okay, now Councilman Gallego, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So this is the 3rd time a liquor license at this location has come to this council. The State Liquor Board has previously disapproved the most recent application. We continued this last time so that the applicant could read into the police report, which has been available for many weeks. And I'm sorry they did not take the time to look into it until this morning. But, I mean, it will be hard to explain how you can be capable to hold a liquor license with these severe erotic entertainer license violations, some of the shooting-related crimes and other things. So with that, I motion to disapprove based on the police department's recommendation for disapproval because of multiple incidents and calls for police service related to acts of violence, erotic entertainer regulation violations, and possible unlawful sex acts at the 2 other locations owned by the applicant.
All right, we have a motion for disapproval. Do we have a second? Are there any additional comments by members of this council? Roll call.
DeCiccio. Gallego.
Yes.
Gates.
Yes.
Nowakowski. Pastor.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Valenzuela.
Yes.
Mayor Stanton.
Yes, so the motion to disapprove was successful unanimously, and we'll move on to the rest of our agenda. Next on our agenda are ordinance, resolutions, and new business. Are we ready for an omnibus motion?
Yes, Mayor. Motion to approve items 20 through 46 except the following items. Items 24, 28, 36, and 37. Item 27 is being continued to November 18th, 2015, and excluding these items for public comment. 20, 23, 35, 36, and 37.
All right, thank you very much. Item 27 was in the omnibus motion to be continued. Mr. Clark, did you wish to provide testimony on the recommended continuance of item number 27? Yeah, please keep your comments only to the issue of whether or not the item should be heard today or a different day.
I really would not rather hear them dragged out because, as we all know, the school board elections are happening right now. So I think, of course, I wouldn't say you are doing this, but as a citizen, it looks coincidental that we are trying to put this off until after our public schools, which are working so hard to get their bond elections passed, that this bond measure of $100 million for basis, item 27, is being stalled until after. But there's nothing I can do about it. We get to put it off once again, and our schools get to suffer. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Clark. All right, that's the omnibus motion.
Mayor, I have questions on item 25.
Councilman Nowakowski, was 25, let's hold out 25 then, and then we'll do the... All right, so then the remainder of the motion will stay in place, holding out in additionally 25. Did we have a motion? Did we get a second?
Second.
Second? Roll call.
DeCiccio. Gallego.
Yes.
Gates.
Yes.
Nowakowski.
Yes.
Pastor.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Valenzuela.
Mayor?
Yes, Councilman Waring?
Oh, it's Jim Waring. They didn't call me, I think, because they didn't know I was on the phone.
Councilman Waring.
Yes.
Valenzuela.
Yes.
Mayor Stanton. Yes, so those items pass unanimously. Next item is item number 20, and we have cards on item number 20. Do you have a motion on item number 20? This is the payment ordinance?
Motion to approve item 20.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Mr. Clark, did you provide testimony on item number 20, the payment ordinance, followed by Mr. Pat Vent?
Thank you, Mayor and Council Member. My name is Leonard Clark, and I support this. I just wonder, it's kind of like the Better Business Bureau, and I know we as a city are rated by these different ratings agencies. They're getting, well, you know what I'm saying. I know why you're smiling, Mayor, but hey, they're getting $13,000 of our tax money, which I still think is good. We want our citizens to be informed, but I wonder, it just seems a little bit like maybe that might influence them on how they're rating our city. I mean, $13,000 I'm sure is nothing to them, but still, it's $13,000 of tax dollars. So I support it, but just thought it,
Thank you very much, Mr. Clark. I apologize. I was smiling because I was trying to figure out whether I should tell Councilman Waring to put his phone on mute or not. Or if she keep listening, maybe something interesting might happen. Councilman Waring?
Yes, I'm fine. Mayor.
Are you in a position to put your phone on mute and then just unlock it or unmute it whenever it's time to vote?
Okay, sure, I can.
All right, thank you very much. Mr. Vint, did you provide testimony on the payment ordinance?
Yes, I am Joseph Finn again, and it's item 20, the payment ordinance right at $1 million, $600 short of $1 million. There's 11 articles here, and 3 of them cover 700,000 of that. And you won't even take 3 minutes of other people's time of your own to discuss this $1 million. The 700,000, there's 2 at 200,000, 1 at 300,000. That's mostly covering City of Phoenix employees, which is a good thing, except that you're going to have to sooner or later start thinking about the citizens of Phoenix, because you don't. You could care less. You're not public servants. You're turning in, or you have been, self-servants. You look after yourselves, and to hell with the citizens. That's a disgrace. But anyway, you don't, thank you. See, they should have turned, now there they go. They can't even make the damn television work. This is a disgrace. Somebody was over there a while ago in a nice white shirt, fiddling with some buttons in the back, but it didn't work, so he just walked off. If the damn thing don't work, turn it off. I'll buy you a new one. I'll get you a television that'll work. And I'll probably get a 86-inch screen so everybody could see the damn thing. People up here in the audience can't see that stupidity. But do you have anyone that's accountable, responsible for television sets? Why don't we take part of this $1 million to fix a couple $100 black and white, of all things, television set? So could you request somebody come down and fix it, Greg?
Thank you very much for your testimony, Mr. Vint. My understanding is that this may be an issue currently with the cable system right now, but I will talk to our city attorney about your generous offer to buy us an 86-inch television for our city council meeting.
Send me the bill. I would like to pay it, okay?
All right, so we have a motion on item number 20.
Can I make a comment?
Please, of course.
Some very exciting things in today's payment ordinance, including moving forward on cybersecurity, investments with Philips Healthcare, which is one of our important partners at the city in health, and continue our partnership with the Arizona Women's Education and Employment Center. We just this morning had a great women's economic forum where several of my Councilman Gates and the mayor and I were able to join our Women's Commission in moving forward in advancing women's economic status in the city of Phoenix. Congratulations to that commission on a great event, and congratulations to all those involved in this exciting partnership with AWE for our female entrepreneurs.
Thank you very much, Councilwoman. Any additional comments? We have a motion on 20, a second. Roll call.
DeCiccio. Gallego.
Yes.
Gates.
Yes.
Nowakowski. Pastor.
Yes.
Waring. Waring. Williams.
Yes.
Valenzuela. Yes. Mayor Stanton.
I'm here. I'm sorry, Mayor. Waring, yes.
And I'll vote yes as well. So item number 20 passes unanimously. Next item is item 23. You have a motion on 23. And Ms. Rogers, you'll provide testimony on 23.
Motion to approve item 23.
Second.
We have a motion. We have a second. Ms. Greta Rogers is here to provide testimony on item 23. I think she...
On this item, my name is Greta Rogers, and on this item, on computer services, is this part of the overall 36 million plus plan that we have approved and is in process for a establishment of a whole new computer system in this city, or is this an add-on?
Mayor, council members, I think Ms. Rogers might be referring to the data and voice system, which we call
I'm referring to your
telephone
computer telecom system.
Right. This would not be related to the telephone replacement system. This is related to our citywide financial system.
Okay. Has there been a bid on this?
Mayor, I would ask our Chief Financial Officer, Denise Olson, if it's your pleasure to answer that question.
Yes, Mayor, City Council. There was a bidding process on this. Basically, it's STAG augmentation for e-procurement programming for our SAP system.
The reason I ask is because the variance between $275K a year and $875 is 3+ times $275. That is an extreme variance in 12 months.
Mayor, members of the council, that's what that is. It's $275 per year. The contract is 3 years, and so the $875 references
the $875 is for 3 years?
The full 3-year cost that's being noted here.
Okay, and if is there a build-in if you go over? We'll give you the benefit of the doubt, or not?
Yes, Mayor, City Council, we will not be exceeding $275,000 a year.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Of course.
It's on the same pathway. Do we have a whole technology plan? And my understanding, or I'm hoping to, not assuming, but that we would be streamlining all our technology into one so that we could become more efficient and effective. And lately we've been voting on patchwork, on pieces. And so I think we all need some clarity of where we're going with the technology piece and understanding all the needs of the departments.
All right, thank you very much. I don't know if you have a short answer on that one now, and then we can add that to a future policy agenda.
We have two very large systems in the city. The financial system is an SAP system. The human resources system is called eCRIS, and I think that is
It's an Oracle system.
Product. Those are the two large ones. But yes, there is a technology plan that we work on with the Chief Information Officer, and we'd be happy to come back through Councilman Gates' subcommittee with a more full discussion of that.
Thank you very much. Any additional questions? All right, we have a motion, we have a second. Roll call.
DeCiccio. Gallego.
Yes.
Gates.
Yes.
Noakowski.
Yes.
Pastor.
Yes.
Waring.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Valenzuela. Mayor Stanton.
Yes. Item 25, I believe, 24 is next, is that correct? Councilwoman Gallego, do you wish to make a motion on item number 24?
Yes, I would like to continue this item to the November 18th council meeting.
Second.
We have a motion to continue to November 18th. We have a second. Any comments on that? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously. Item number 25, I believe, is next. Vice Mayor, do we have a motion on item 25?
Motion to approve item 25.
Second.
Do we have cards on item 25? Oh,
Mayor, I have a comment.
Councilman Nowakowski, I apologize. Councilman Nowakowski, did you have a comment on the 25?
Yes, we can have our staff up here. Just basically want some clarification of exactly what is telecom doing for us, and what's this additional $250,000. I just want to make sure that whoever is successfully receiving the RFP, that individual's a part of the development of the system, design, the training, and all that goes to the individual that has won the RFP, and that we're not contracting telecom to do that training. And what is their scope, and what have they done already, and what's the additional $250,000 for?
Mayor, members of the council, Councilman Nowakowski, I'm Mario Paniagua, Deputy City Manager. Along with me here is Debbie Cotton, who's our Chief Information Officer, and she would be the best one to answer your question.
Mayor, members of the council, this procurement for the services of Com Group was conducted in accordance with AR 3.10. And as a part of that procurement, it was really a series of services that we needed from an industry expert in the telecommunications field. The reason we selected Com Group is because they have over 35 years of industry experience. And as we know, the city's telephone system is almost 30 years old, so obviously that's not experience that we have in-house. Some of the services that were included in the overall umbrella of the procurement included an analysis of the city's existing phone system, assisting us with the development and the evaluation of the RFP. And those are the services that they were awarded in 2014. Also included in the procurement, which we did not execute, are those services that we would like to that is the reason that we would like to extend the contract. Now that we're done with the procurement phase, or we're reaching the end of the procurement phase, we would like to continue using this vendor to use additional services to provide quality assurance services, assist us with contract negotiations, development of a high-level schedule, implementation, and to provide quality assurance services. These services were included in the original RFP. However, we did not pay for those services at that time. We wanted to finish the first phase, and we are back before you today to get your support to execute the remaining aspects of the contract.
And the first phase was for how much?
200, Mayor, members of the council, $250,000.
And basically, this is the second phase of the second part of that $500,000 that we were thinking it would cost us to actually complete this task, right?
Mayor, members of the council, Councilman Noakowski, yes, that is correct.
Alrighty, thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Any additional questions?
I have questions.
Councilwoman, please.
In the second phase, it says, include expert technical and quality assurance support. One of the questions I have is, are we training people within also to, in the sense of once this contract is over, something with the phone, if something goes on, someone needs assistance, I got a new telephone line, and when I had difficulties of looking for some features or trying to figure out some features, I had internally, I could go to a technical person or an ITS person that I could call, and they would assist me. So is that happening internally?
Yes, Mayor, members of the council, I'm Rob Sweeney, Assistant Chief Information Officer with Information Technology Services. Councilman Gallego, Pastor, the question specifically on who will do the training, that would be part of the offer of the telephone system itself. So as we come to this body and ask for an award in due time, that scope will be part of that arrangement. We'll be using ComGroup to validate and provide quality assurance of that specific training elements for the city staff as well as for any end user within the system. So the particular item in front of you today, ComGroup, is the quality assurance of that training plan itself.
I think the answer, though, specifically is that our staff will be trained by the ultimate provider of the system, and that's part of what they're going to be required to do is to train us as well.
Okay.
Councilman Noakowski?
So basically, we have no one on staff that's qualified or has the knowledge of this new technology, of a new phone system for the whole city of Phoenix, and that's why we went out and outsourced this type of expertise, right?
Mayor, Councilman Noakowski, members of the council, excuse me, that is correct. Installing a telephone system of this nature and complexity, considering the large number of facilities we have, the number of telephone systems we have, the large network infrastructure that will need to be implemented, you are correct. It is a very huge task. There are industry experts, and as we said, the individuals from ComGroup have over 35 years of experience installing systems of this size and scope in similar organizations of our size and larger. So yes, that is why we outsource this type of high-level skill to the private sector.
My concern, Mayor, is that we're looking into technology and using it to its fullest, but it doesn't seem like we have the staff that's capable to take us to that next level, and we're spending $500,000 for consultants to come in and to give us their expertise. In the future, I'd really like to look for individuals that either we train those individuals to take us to the next level so that we don't have to be spending $500,000 in getting an expert to come in and to tell us what we should be using. So that's just a recommendation for the future.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilman Noakowski. Generally, we do want to build the skills in our own staff to be able to do these things. I think the one aspect of this that's unique is that we haven't installed a phone system in the city for 30 years. And so this is the kind of thing where people who are out installing phone systems all over the country will have the skills more than a city employee. So in this specific case, we think it aligns with the desire for outsourcing. But generally speaking, yes, we agree that we want to train our staff to be able to maintain and work our own IT.
Any additional questions? All right, we have a motion and a second. Roll call.
DeCiccio.
Yes.
Gallego.
Yes.
Gates.
Yes.
Noakowski.
Yes.
Pastor.
Yes.
Waring.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Valenzuela.
Yes.
Mayor Stanton.
Yes. All right, next item on the agenda is item number 35, I believe?
28.
28, I'm sorry.
Motion.
Oh,
to
yeah,
approve-
I'm sorry, yeah, do we have a motion on 28?
Motion to approve item 28.
I'll second that,
We have a
Mayor.
motion and a second. We
And I
have
have
one
some
card,
comments, too.
or let's see, 2 cards in favor, not wishing to speak. Mr. Steve Cohn, who is representing the hotel, and I think is one of the owners of the hotel, and William Headley as well. Councilman Noakowski, you have comments on 28?
I'd like to hear the comments first, and
Well, they're not wishing to speak.
all right. Well, basically, I just really want to thank all the stakeholders and all those individuals that came together about 3 to 4 years ago to really think outside the box and how to become more of a vibrant downtown. And this whole Adams Street project is just a wonderful, wonderful project. It's the gateway in front of our convention center. When people come to visit our convention center, they walk out right now, and there's not that gateway into the restaurants and the cityscapes and all the great amenities that we have in downtown Phoenix. And this is just working together as a Team Phoenix approach, where we have our staff and all the different stakeholders coming together to make our city a great city. So just really want to thank people for all their hard commitment, and also the Renaissance Hotel for their commitment to downtown and all their hard work.
Thank you very much. Any additional comments? Councilman Gallego?
And we should thank you, Councilman Noakowski, for your leadership in making sure our city's infrastructure is befitting of our great downtown. This project will include some shade at what was, at least at one point, the hottest corner in Phoenix physically, so the hottest point in our urban heat island. And as we want people out walking in our downtown more often, this partnership is an important step forwards to continuing the progress we've been making in downtown. So thank you for many, many years that went into making this happen, as well as our staff and the folks downtown. This was a lot of work to get here today, so thank you to the hotel and everyone involved.
Thank you very much. Any additional comments? I do want to say thanks to Councilman Noakowski. I know you have really pushed the city to rethink this important street, the uniquely important street, in light of it being the front door in so many ways to visitors from all over the country and the globe to Phoenix for important conferences, and that we haven't always put our best foot forward with how this street has been presented, and now we're going to take it to a whole new level. And I appreciate you kind of pushing us in the right direction in that regard. All right, with that, roll call.
DeCiccio. Gallego.
Yes.
Gates.
Yes.
Noakowski.
Yes.
Pastor.
Yes.
Waring.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Valenzuela. Mayor Stanton.
Yes, that item passes unanimously. Item number, are we 35 now?
Yes.
Okay, 35. We have a motion on 35?
To approve item 35.
Second.
A motion, a second on 35. Leonard Clark, do you have testimony on 35?
Council members, I guess I can talk without the microphone because I don't have a hard problem doing that. I would like to say that I'm not against, going out. I had friends who worked law enforcement. They go to the swap meets, whether they're trying to find cheap takeoffs of Nike products, et cetera, intellectual people making money off their music. I understand that. I think that's good. I think that it's good you're protecting the intellectual property of people who have licenses to do that. I just ask maybe that you would consider having a white-collar crime investigation grant or unit that could go investigate the large banks and financial brokers in the city of Phoenix who really get off very lightly. Why don't you also approve something like that where we could investigate bankers, big financial broker deals that are going on? That would be good, because I never seem to see that. In Iceland, though, they did throw some bankers in jail, so maybe there is hope, but maybe we consider that. Investigate the white-collar bankers and all of that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Clark. So a motion in favor of acceptance of this grant. We have a second. Roll call.
DeCiccio. Gallego.
Yes.
Gates.
Yes.
Noakowski.
Yes.
Pastor.
Yes.
Waring.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Valenzuela.
Yes.
Mayor Stanton.
Yes. Next item on the agenda is item 36.
Motion to approve item 36.
We have a motion in favor of 36.
Second.
We have a second. We have a couple cards in favor. Ms. Haley Ritter, do you wish to testify on item number 36?
Can you sign this one?
Yes, thank you, Mayor, and all wonderful city council members today. It's nice to see you all again. Thank you, first of all, for all the bicycle improvements on 15th Avenue and around the city. I'm looking forward to more of those. Pardon me while my brain does electrical things. Okay, this item about police funding. I'd like to see a portion of the Access 16 million be put forth towards the implementation and operation of a civilian review board with subpoena power. I like that idea. Data collection for to identify racial profiling, body and dash cams on all our police units to not only improve the transparency of the Phoenix Police Department itself, but also just to get good, accurate evidence of what's going on when major confrontations happen. Also, use of force transparency, just making sure, using body and dash cams to identify when there's maybe a exploitation of power going on in the Phoenix Police Department for unnecessary arrests or holdings of pedestrians and people who aren't necessarily doing anything wrong. Also, use of restraint training that doesn't promote needless domination on innocent people. I know that there's a lot of innocent people in jail right now, and that's a waste of funding. And I appreciate all the good job that the Phoenix Police Department does do. Don't get me wrong. I've been in situations where I've witnessed confrontations at light rail stops late at night, and I appreciate the fact that they're doing those things. So thank you for everything, and keep going with all the wonderful plans we have for pedestrians in the city. I had some quotes from a New York Times article about pedestrians, but I'll get to that another time. Thank you.
Thank you, Haley, very much. Mr. Leonard Clark, do you provide testimony on item 36, excuse me? No problem. Councilman Nowakowski, you have comments on item 36?
Mayor, as the Chair of Public Safety Subcommittee, and also for my colleagues, I just really want to thank them for their strong advocacy in making sure that city staff and our individuals that we have in Washington, D.C. continues to look for those grants that are out there. With this grant, we're going to actually hire 25 more officers, also get some additional body camera for our officers out there on the streets. And these are programs that we really need. And I just want to thank yourself, Mayor, for your leadership in making sure that we can hire more police officers and all my colleagues.
Thank you very much. Any additional comments by members of this council? We have a motion in favor, a second. Roll call.
DeCiccio. Gallego.
Yes.
Gates.
Yes.
Nowakowski.
Yes.
Pastor.
Yes.
Waring.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Valenzuela. Yes. Mayor Stanton.
Yes. Next item is item 37.
Motion to approve item 37.
We have a motion in favor of 37. We have a second.
Second.
We have a second. Ms. Ritter, did you wish to provide testimony on item 37? Did she have to leave? Ms. Haley Ritter? Okay. She was in favor of the item. Mr. Leonard Clark, you want to provide testimony on this one? You mark your card as neutral, followed by Ms. Greta Rogers.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. I was actually hoping I could speak without the microphone. This is like a stage, so. Anyways, you know what? First of all, I want to thank the citizens who keep their eyes open, and they look for things, a few bad apples that might be in our law enforcement. I want to thank our law enforcement who do a good job, because they don't want a few bad apples to ruin it for the rest of themselves. That being said, I think everybody now knows that this is not just a simple them against us. It's not that simple. It's a very complicated matter. Again, I will ask you as a citizen to check into people who, have scientific backgrounds, sociologists, psychologists. I mean, you look at cultures, we need anthropologists. Every job site has its own sociology, its own jargon, its own culture, how people behave, its own social mores. Just like you do, everybody does. Everything, even politics is sociology. So why don't we, instead of having to make this against the bad guys against the good guys, whoever they might be, whether you say it's the police, you say it's the people raising the questions, because I do believe we should have dash cams and all these. Why don't we bring in sociologists, psychologists? Can't you guys agree to find somebody that we don't have to argue from a left-wing or right-wing perspective, because I understand many of our officers are coming back from the military, like I came back, and we have this mentality that maybe every person out there is a potential terrorist, and that's the tragedy. So I like community policing, and I'm hoping that with this, what you're going to hopefully approve, that we can look into that. And yes, I do know there are people out there that want to kill police, and so of course they have to be on their guard. But I also know of some officers that other officers will agree probably shouldn't be in law enforcement, but maybe behind a desk. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Clark. That's all. Oh, Ms. Greta Rogers, you have testimony on this item?
Mayor and Council, my name is Greta Rogers. I'm in favor of this, but I have some questions because this has come up before in previous years. How many officers do we have today? What's the total complement?
All right, Mr. City Manager, you have a good an estimate on the number of officers we have on the force today?
Mayor, we currently have, I think, about 2,850 sworn police officers.
And what is the goal you want to achieve for a full complement for a city the size this is, both in square miles and population?
We currently have a funding plan in place to reach about 3,150 police officers in about 3 years.
In 3 years? Thank you. I would like to see us camera every officer and not 25 at a time. 25 is spit in the ocean. It isn't adequate for their safety and for the protection and enhancement that these tools provide them. For the provision of public safety at the best level and quality that we should be providing. And if we have to curtail other department wants and needs, so be it. Nothing is more important in this city than the best provision of public safety we are obligated to provide, both fire and police. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Rogers. We have a motion in favor of 37. We have a second. Mayor, Councilman, please jump in.
Just if I could, too, we talked this morning about the body camera issue with the city manager. One of the things that I think that we need to be very clear on, we understand, and from my end of it, a lot of it deals with individual privacy from the citizen, with the citizenry, and also the officers should expect a level of privacy as well of when the cameras can and cannot be used. I think this is something that we'll eventually need to take to the full council as to what kind of policies we're going to be putting in place. I know part of this deals with some of the research, but when you're dealing with this, and I just want to give the public just a kind of an idea, the actual cost of a camera is inexpensive. It's not about the camera. It's everything that happens afterwards. As the city manager has explained before, and I've even mentioned before as myself, is that there may be 3 or 4 officers, and then you've got to evaluate all 3 or 4 of those tapes. Someone's got to do that evaluation. Someone's got to figure out how the storage is done. Someone's got to figure out what is and what is not acceptable. If you talk to civil libertarians, most of them will say it's all public information. The question is, what is public information, what isn't? If a police officer enters into a home, is when the body camera is on, And let's say it's not a suspect, but a victim. Is that camera now recording everything that's happening in that home? So these are the types of policies that I want to look at because, the things, I like the cameras. I think I've always advocated for them. But I think we've really got to look at the individual privacy, how we deal with that, and also the privacy of the officer when those cameras are on and when they're off. For example, this sounds odd, but when a police officer is in the restroom, do we really need to have the camera on? We don't. As simple as that. So it's not as simple as attaching like this little camera onto someone's vest. It literally is a lot more complicated in the sense that of what needs to happen afterwards. So I'm going to be more interested in how we deal with that, but I think we really do need to bring this to the council when we deal with the policies. Additionally, on top of that, I would appreciate reaching out to what I would consider the non-aligned groups, but they would be on something like this, the ACLU and the Goldwater Institute, because each one of them have dealt with privacy issues. I don't think that as a society, and I'm going to give you a statement from my end, at least setting the groundwork, people that are doing basic things in their lives should not expect the government to be videotaping them or listening in on any of their conversations if they're doing normal day-to-day activity. That is where you draw the line. I think people have heard me say this before because at Arizona State University, they have a camera going around videotaping tailgaters. That is a normal activity from day-to-day life. People should expect privacy from their government. I understand it's a public area, but a government is an entirely different entity than it is your next door neighbor who may be videotaping you outside in a public space. So I'm going to be more interested in what we do with the information, what is not public information, and when we turn those cameras on for our police officers and when we turn those off. That's the kind of the direction at least I'm going to be looking at as we move forward on this, and would appreciate a full discussion on it because I think we're really going to need that. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much. Any other comments by members of this council? Roll call.
DeCiccio. Gallego.
Yes.
Gates.
Yes.
Nowakowski.
Yes.
Pastor.
Yes.
Waring.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Valenzuela. Yes. Mayor Stanton.
Yes. I believe then that completes our ordinance resolutions and new business. Any other items in that area? Okay, now we're going to move on to our planning and zoning matters before this city council, items 47 through 52. Vice Mayor, we prepare with a motion on planning and zoning matters.
Motion to approve items 47 through 52, except items 50 and 51. Bless you.
We have a motion and a second. Any comments by members of the council? Any cards on those items? Roll call.
DeCiccio. Gallego.
Yes.
Gates.
Yes.
Nowakowski. Pastor.
Yes.
Waring.
Yes.
Williams. Valenzuela.
Yes.
Mayor Stanton.
Yes. Now we'll move on to item number 50. Item number 50 is a proposed rezoning matter at the northeast corner of 31st Street and Sherrill Drive. I believe we have to hold a public hearing on this item. So at this time, I will now open the public hearing. Let's see, we have cards both in favor and opposed. We'll start with Allison Buffum. Did you provide testimony on item number 50? If so, please come forward, followed by Ms. Sampson, up to two minutes of testimony.
Hi, Mayor Stanton and council members. My name is Allison Buffum. Address is 2710 East Yucca Street. I was here for the last redevelopment item, which was View 32. I am very active in the redevelopment in this community because I do believe that more and more of the families and young professionals that we saw at the event on Saturday will come to this area if there are opportunities for them to buy into a development like this that offers them very low maintenance yards as they build, their professional lives. In addition, at the price point that has been mentioned, this will continue to support home prices in the area going up. Right now, this is a vacant lot. It backs up to commercial property. it really does not separate out you just look right at the commercial property. So I am in favor of this. I would like to continue to see developers doing quality infill building be supported coming into our neighborhood and helping revitalize it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your coming down and providing that important testimony.
And Mayor, may I just comment? Allison, thank you for coming down, and thanks for all your active involvement along North 32nd, including you mentioned it on Saturday, the bike ride / costume party at Christie Cove Park. So thanks to you and Joe and so many others who are working so hard to improve North 32nd.
Thank you.
Ms. Sampson, did you provide testimony on item number 50? Ms. Sampson here? Sam Sal, maybe? Please, I apologize if I mispronounced. Please state your name for the record.
City Council and Mayor, my name is Penny Samer, 3029 East Burrell Avenue, Phoenix, Arizona. Adjacent neighbors and citizens of the City of Phoenix have a zoning ordinance, a general plan, and a North 32nd Street policy plan on which they rely, and all of which establish 3110 East Burrell as single-family residential at 5 dwelling units per acre or less. The site, 3110 East Burrell, should be required by definition of the North 32nd Street policy plan and all of the other documents to stay as it currently exists, single-family residential neighborhood with an established density, page 22, unquote. If you voted for the North 32nd Street policy plan, then you voted for this definition. And the parcel, 3110 East Sherrill Drive, should stay as it currently exists. We ask you to vote no on Z2315. I want to say that I prefer R110, which is the current zoning, and I prefer 3.5 to 5 dwelling units per acre as it currently exists. However, I realize that some of you will think otherwise, so I want you to know that there are stipulations to the current plan that would be beneficial. Stipulation 1 would be that density be no greater than 5 dwelling units per acre. And by reducing the density to 5 dwelling units per acre, the builder will be able to provide aesthetic open space and a drive between dwelling units to create access alignment that is oriented to 31st Place and East Sherrill Drive rather than pointing headlights and traffic into northwestern neighboring homes. It will also allow for 18-foot parking pads behind each unit, which will eliminate the need for on-street parking that the site plan will require now. Step 2 then would be to orient the access to 31st Place. Step 3 would be to do the 18-inch parking pads. Step 4 would be to alternate architectural elevations or story levels between both 1 and 2 stories, limiting the 1-story units fronting on the perimeter streets. In closing, we agree with North 32nd Street policy plan when it says, our neighborhood is stable, and we deserve your vote to keep it that way. Stable is defined as stay as it currently exists. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Samer. I do have a separate card for Ms. Sampson at 10235 North 31st Street. No? Okay, that card is opposed to the item as well. How about Sonia Cherry?
Mayor, Councilman, thank you for having us here. My name is Sonia Cherry, and I live at 3030 East Burrell, which is directly across the street from this project. I've lived there for 43 years. This request for zoning change does not meet the general plan. The planning staff has recommended approval of this, even though they admit it does not meet the general plan and the village core concept. This request is also not follow the mapping done by the 32nd Street committees. The planning staff arbitrarily changed the designation of this parcel from red, stable preserve, to blue, redeveloped change. This is not right that they should arbitrarily change this at the request of the developer. This biggest elephant in the room on this project is the project itself. The drawings are file copies, not drawn for this parcel. There's not an architect, there's not a buyer, there's not a contractor, or apparently any financing that Rose Law or Empire will admit to. The stipulations included by the planning staff are recommendations that will be changed by variance later when they finally come up with whatever they're going to put on this property. We deserve to know what this is going to be before this zoning is changed. We know this property has to be developed. It's an empty lot. Although, after looking at temporary trailers that were put on there for the school, which had nothing to do with the church, by the way, I've looked at those for 14 years, the temporary trailers. So I like the empty lot. I'd rather look at that than the backside of a trailer house. The campaign statements that I've read by this council touting how you would work to preserve our neighborhoods and to keep us safe, and your concern for our quality of life now come to the forefront. Are you going to keep your promises? Now is your chance to step up and take care of our neighborhoods by voting no on this rezoning.
Thank you, Ms. Chair. Do you have more?
I'm sorry, what?
Each speaker has about 2 minutes, and the timer ran out, but if you have just one more sentence or so, that's okay.
Okay, my last sentence was, please support the residents most affected by this unpredictable, unacceptable project, or whatever it may be changed to, and vote no.
Thank you very much, Ms. Cherry.
you.
Mr. Doug Ganji, did you provide testimony on this item? You're Ms. Sampson? Please come forward. That's fine.
Public records suggest your applicant, Empire, along with their aliases and others in the company, are currently in violation of about 10 Superior Court orders in this county alone, amounting to over $50 million. Well, the recession was hard on my neighbors, too. Some of us lost our jobs, some of us lost our homes, and the privilege to live in the neighborhood. Empire should not have greater privileges than the neighbors just because they paid a rezoning fee. The recession was hard on the city of Phoenix too, but it feels like the city is trying to recoup their losses by having a fire sale on the general plan, shifting loss away from the city and onto the neighborhoods. Upon my request, Mr. Gates kindly provided me with a compilation of District 3 rezoning outcomes for the past couple of years. It appears 100% of the applications were approved. So, City of Phoenix, how exactly does this 100% passage rate demonstrate any commitment to the opinions of your citizens? Lastly, 100% tells me our neighborhoods with primarily single-family detached homes are up for sale to anyone wanting to make a buck on multi-family units. I can only call such rezoning practices predatory and rapacious. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Sampson. Now, Douglas Ganji, did you wish to provide testimony on this item?
Good afternoon. My name is Douglas Ganji. I reside at 2401 East Turquoise Drive in Phoenix, Arizona. And I also own additional 2 properties in the 32nd Street corridor at 17419 North 35th Place, as well as 3508 East Charleston Avenue. Even though I live a mile away from the proposed property zoning change. Sherrill Drive is one of the main entrances into our neighborhood, and as it stands today, we've got a vacant lot that greets everybody that drives into the neighborhood. That's one of the main entrances for people to put for sale signs up. It's one of the main entrances for traffic to enter the neighborhood. And the first thing that we see today is a vacant lot. The vacant lot backs against a commercial structure that was never really well maintained, and it also sides another townhome complex. Currently, the church that was there was destroyed, taken out, obviously, a number of years ago. And since then, the lots remain vacant and probably will be forever unless some kind of zoning is changed. I'm a real estate investor myself. That's not my primary occupation, but I understand the economics of real estate. As it stands, you've got a property that only allows for so many homes to be built on a lot that sides a commercial structure and sides a townhome. If you're in the market for a single-family residence, would you prefer to live next to that? Probably not. Any developer realizes the same thing and is going to stay away from this property. So the only way this is going to ever change is if a church is built there again, which there are already like 2 or 3 other ones for sale in our neighborhood, or we have a zoning change that allows for denser development that allows for a realtor or a developer to actually make a profit on the land. You've got commercial on one side, you've got single family on another side. Usually townhomes make great step-down transitional projects. That's what's being proposed. It was originally 3 stories, which a lot of people did feel was too high. I think now the rezoning request still caps the height at a 2-story level, and which would, again, roughly keep the levels of the townhomes similar to what you have on the commercial side. The single-family residences that are nearby that structure, again, should have the benefit of additional residents that'll be in the area. Traffic should not be impacted very much because, again, there's additional townhome structures up and down that street. I have a jogging route. I go past that all the time. I never see cars parked on the street. I never see traffic problems anywhere around there. And those are some of the things that some of the people in opposition have complained about. I understand change is not necessarily going to be something everyone embraces, but again, unless we do something to change the zoning on this to make this appealing for an investor, I can promise you right now that land's going to sit vacant for the foreseeable future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ganji. Sharon Zelmer is submitted a card not wishing to speak, but was supporting the proposal. That's all the cards I have on this item. Is anyone else here wishing to provide testimony on item number 50? Please come forward, state your name, and you have up 2 minutes to provide testimony.
I apologize. I'm Shelby Duplessis with Empire Communities, the applicant. I thought we got our card in, so I apologize. I think that we've covered everything. We've worked very closely with staff and with many on the council to answer questions. We've been fortunate actually to have a very active community in this area that have led the charge on getting petitions, letters of support, email of support, so we can't be thankful enough for those neighbors. Today, I think as of 3 when I came here, we were up to 75 officially in support of the project that have submitted either signatures on petitions or letters and emails without counting the duplications. We've worked very closely with the neighbors in providing this development, both through redesign and stipulations that we've actually agreed to better fit within the community from where we started. We originally had 30 lots. We are now down to 22 lots. We have provided a 20-foot buffer along the perimeter and instead of 10-foot. We've removed the lots from the north side of the property. That was the only common property line with existing residents to provide greater privacy. We are now working with neighborhood services and the commercial building owner just to the east to actually provide a mural on that commercial building. That was driving part of the entrance off of 31st to be able to provide buffer from that commercial building and not have any of the newer homes backing up to commercial. The parking issue, we have actually included 2-car garages in every unit and added the on-site parking within the community in addition to what was actually required. With the 2-car garage, there was actually no requirement. I do appreciate the 100% that was recognized. I think that a lot of that is molded from the developers working with the neighborhood. We have had 2 neighborhood meetings and continued communication with them. So I think for that reason, that is why we see such a high success rate with our zoning case opportunities. other than what's been mentioned today. I don't want to redwell on all of that. If there's any additional questions, I think the next biggest stipulation, the main contention when we first met with the neighbors was the height. The 3 stories that were proposed with roof decks, we've actually gone down and limited every unit to 2 stories and removed roof decks completely. So I think we've accomplished everything that, most everything that was wanted by the neighbors. Obviously, if we can ever find a 100% zoning case where everyone's happy, well, I wouldn't have a job anymore. So. But we're doing our best, and I appreciate any feedback or questions that you might have.
Any questions? All right, thank you very much. Thanks for your testimony.
Thank you.
All right, that's all the cards and comments we have on this item, so I'm going to close the public hearing at this time, and I'm going to hand it over to Councilmember Gates. I don't know if you have any comments or a motion.
First, Mayor, thank you, Mayor. I'd like to have a brief staff report.
Thank you.
Mayor, members of council, thank you. This request, as stated, is a rezoning for the northeast corner of 31st Street and Sherrill Drive from R110 to R2 to allow for a single-family residential townhouse development. The Paradise Valley Village Planning Committee voted by a 10-0 vote to approve the request. The Planning Commission also voted by a 6-0 vote to approve the request. It is a 3/4 vote of the City Council is required today. As pointed out in the earlier discussions, this is, aerial shows the existing church that was there that was torn down a couple of years ago, so it is vacant today. Here's the proposed site plan with access here off of 31st. Here is Sherrill Drive down here. The development in this area to the north, you have about 10.5 dwelling units per acre of some townhomes here, and then you have lower density single-family residential on the south and the east, and then you have commercial over here to the east. I'm sorry, that's the west where the single-family residential is. On the east, you have commercial over here. So this parcel is a good buffer in terms of where it's at from a development standpoint with the single-family residential. It is only at 8.7 dwelling units per acre, so it's less dense than the stuff to the north, but not as low density as you've heard from some of the neighbors who live down here and would like that. One of the comments from one of the residents addressed the general plan. I'd like to address that for a minute. The general plan has what they call density types in there, and so there are traditional suburban residential density types, and so the category that this one in is 3.5 to 5, but it allows for a single-family townhouse style of development because it's a general plan. It's not meant to be a precise guide on exactly what can happen on every property because we don't go through that kind of analysis when the plan was adopted. So it sets a broader framework. You know, an apartment complex coming in there wouldn't be consistent with the general plan, but a townhouse style that can go up to 10 dwellings per acre is consistent with the general plan. In terms of the 32nd Street corridor plan, that is something that the plan as adopted has language in it that talks about exact cases coming forward, and then you will evaluate those cases. And the intent in that plan, showing it to be read and stable, was that it would be single-family residential, not that it be upzoned to multifamily or something like that. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Stevenson. Councilman Gates?
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Stevenson, for your report and kind of clarifying some of the issues. I have a few comments, Mayor, and then I'll go ahead and throw a motion out on the table. Want to thank everyone who's been involved in this North 32nd revitalization project, which we've been talking about here for several years. And the Urban Land Institute got involved, held a day-long conference along the corridor, and one of the things that they said we need along North 32nd is more people living in the area to support the businesses there. This is, in my opinion, a good opportunity to bring new development into the area. And let's be clear about what we're talking about here. These are single-family townhomes. And there was a comment made about suggesting, I guess, that I only am interested in the position of the developers. I'm not sure exactly what the list is that they're looking at, but on this case and many others in the past, public engagement is very important, and getting the views of the neighbors is very important. And we've been fully engaged engaged working with the applicant, and so based upon that those neighborhood comments, there have been many changes that have been made to this project. It's been changed from 30 to 22 lots. It's been changed from 3 stories to 2 stories, which to me is a deal breaker. 3 stories would be too tall here, but I believe 2 stories is consistent and appropriate. Increase the setbacks around the perimeter from 10 feet to 20 feet. Remove the lots that were on the north side of the property, as that would have been adjacent to the other townhomes. Removed roof deck options. Undulated the basin along Sherrill, because obviously drainage is an issue. Added 9 parking stalls on the east side of the property there because of concerns about on-street parking that might occur, and we are certainly very much interested in working with streets to add no parking signs if that's needed once this development is put in. As well, also added openings there between the buildings, which you can see to allow to break up the buildings. And again, the neighborhood process and the community process is very important to me. This case went to the Paradise Valley Village Planning Committee. They approved this rezoning request unanimously. It then went to the Planning Commission. They approved this unanimously. We've gotten a lot of feedback in my office. 60 people signed, and these are people who live near the site, signed in support of it. We've had at least 34 emails and letters of support into our office, which gets us to about a total of 75 officially in support. I understand the concerns that have been raised about, well, what happens if someone comes along and they want to do something different than what has been presented this evening. That's important to us, obviously, and maybe I will ask a question, Mr. Stevenson. Let's say a group came along, purchased a property, and wanted to change this plan. Can you talk about what would happen?
Certainly, Mayor, Councilman Gates. If anyone who would purchase this property has to abide by the stipulations that are put on the site. And if they want to come in and change the plan, they would have to go back through a public hearing process to modify those stipulations. That hearing process does go to the Paradise Valley Village Planning Committee. And if it's not appealed, it will go right back to council for ratification. But if it does get appealed because there's community concerns, it would go to the Planning Commission and ultimately back to City Council for a final vote.
Thank you very much. And I think that's an important clarification that we all need to understand as this moves forward. So again, I appreciate everyone who's come this evening. Appreciate people who have been involved in the neighborhood meetings and throughout. You all have helped to make this a better product, something that's going to be more beneficial to the area. So with that, Mayor, I'd make a motion to approve per the Planning Commission recommendation and adopt the related ordinance.
All right, so we have a motion to approve. We have a second. Are there any additional comments by members of this council? Councilman DeCiccio, do you have something?
Just a quick one. When you start looking at projects like this, these are the type of projects that we do need to have in the city of Phoenix. I mean, you've got to have a variety of different housing. If you're not growing, I know it's difficult, especially when you're dealing with change in any neighborhood. It's that you've got to be able to provide a level of housing for individuals that are looking for that type of housing in that marketplace. If you don't do that, then you're going to reach a period of stagnation. And I just want to commend Bill and the amount of work that he's put into that whole 32nd Street corridor. That was amazing what you've been able to put together, but it's also the biggest challenges are up ahead of you too, because as you try to see the vitality, and if people remember what happened on 32nd Street, all you have to do is go back in time just maybe 18 months ago. Nobody was looking at that corridor. They weren't looking at it. It just wasn't on anyone's radar screen just because of the buildings being boarded up, the deterioration that was occurring in that area. I'm very familiar with it. I drive by it quite a bit. I live, not there, but I live close. Oh, I don't live close to it, but I drive by it. And I do remember how hard that was. And when you reach a point in time where deterioration starts occurring in a neighborhood and it passes what I would consider to be this point that it's almost impossible to turn back on, that's where this neighborhood was heading at one point. It literally was reaching a point where it was going to be very difficult to get businesses back in there, housing back in there, people back in there. And I know it's difficult and it's going to be a continual challenge there, but in no zoning case has ever come in here with, I can't remember the last time we've had 100% of the people saying, hey, this is the greatest thing on the planet, because there will always be a variety of opinion. There will always be a variety of what should happen. But at the end of the day, if you're not bringing new housing into an area, eventually you'll reach stagnation. Once you reach stagnation, then you're going to start seeing a market decline in an area, no matter where you're at. It could be at the Biltmore, it could be anywhere. So I think this is going to be one of those things that's going to happen over time, but I do want to commend you on all the work that you were able to do, you and Councilman Waring in particular, all the work you were able to do in that corridor, because that was a massive challenge. And quite frankly, I didn't know you were going to be able to get it done and getting positive growth occurring in an area that was literally heading in the wrong direction. So I'm fully supportive of this, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Any additional comments? The only comment I was going to make is the statement about suggestion that Councilman Gates, when votes come before this council, only looks one way and not at all asked for the case. That's certainly not my experience. He works very, very closely with his neighbors. Cases that have come before this council, he's put significant stipulations for neighborhood protection. As a practical matter, if he doesn't like the case, it's going to be withdrawn, so it's not going to get to this level. So I appreciate the research that was done, but I don't want to leave a false impression with regard to Councilman Gates and his advocacy on behalf of the people he represents. All right, with that, roll call.
DeCiccio. Gallego.
Yes.
Gates.
Yes.
Nowakowski.
Yes.
Pastor.
Yes.
Waring.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Valenzuela.
Yes.
Mayor Stanton.
Yes, so the motion passes unanimously. We're now going to move on to item number 51. Item number 51 is a proposed zoning matter at the corner of 16th Street and Ocotillo. Last time we did the public hearing first and then the staff report. I think probably better so that we're all kind of working off the same hymn book, if you will. Why don't we have Mr. Stevenson provide his staff report, and then we'll hold the public hearing, so then members of the public can, and then people watching at home can understand a little more detail about the case we're analyzing. Mr. Stevenson, you go first.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. This request is a rezoning at the southeast west corner of 16th Street and Ocotillo Road. This is from R16 to planned unit development for also a single-family residential project. The Camelback East Village Planning Committee recommended approval by a vote of 14-4. The Planning Commission also recommended approval based upon the Camelback East Village Planning Committee stipulations by a vote of 5-1. You see on the aerial up here, here's the subject site here. The surrounding zoning on it is R16 in these areas here, and then a little bit higher density residential to the east side of 16th Street. This site had an old home on it that has since been torn down as well, and it's vacant. Here is the site plan. Here they are proposing 22 single-family homes as part of this project. And with that, I'd be happy to, one more item, I just want to clarify that staff does recommend approval per the memo dated October 22nd from me that has a new site plan that shifts the driveway west on Ocotillo Road. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Stevenson. He'll be available for questions by this council after the public hearing. So now at this time, I'm going to open the public hearing. Mr. Bull, you're representing the applicant.
Yes.
Did you wish to provide testimony this time?
That's up to you and the council. If you'd like me to make opening remarks, I will be happy to. If you want me to sit tight and comment later, I'll follow your direction.
Okay, why don't you sit tight? I'm going to let there are about 5 or 6 cards of neighbors in opposition, so I want to hear from them first, and I'll give you a chance to respond afterwards. How about Bill Murphy? You're opposed to the item. Did you provide testimony on this item? Followed by Phyllis Rowe.
Good afternoon, Mayor, members of the City Council. My name is Bill Murphy, and I reside with my wife and family at 6718 North 15th Place. We have lived in this neighborhood for 22 years, and our home is located just north of the proposed development on the southwest corner of 16th and Ocotillo. Over the last several months, we have followed the zoning case with our neighbors through the hearings at the Village and Planning Commissions. My personal input is similar to what my neighbors feel. We would like the provide entry off of 16th Street, not on Ocotillo, would prefer the development place 18 homes rather than 22, and our growing concerns with traffic as infill comes into our neighborhood. I certainly acknowledge that the improvements Mr. Bowl and his client from Watt New Leaf have proposed will enhance our neighborhood. The previous owner of the 3.25-acre site did not provide the necessary maintenance required for many years, so this will be an improvement. Each of the previous commissions have listened to our request, but have continued to place the only entrance and exit for the development to occur on Ocotillo. In fact, the design aligns directly onto my street, 15th Place. 15th Place has a mixed demographic of families from grown adults to new families with young children. Our street is experiencing positive change. Directly across from the development is a Buddhist temple, which is very active on the weekends. Our street is very active. We have speed bumps for safety, but we still experience heavy traffic counts daily. In August, some of our homeowners in our neighborhood had discussions with Mr. Bowl and his client, along with Vanessa Salinas, council member, the CCO's office, along with Carrie Wilcoxon, the city's traffic engineer. Mr. Wilcoxon explained some options that the city could help our neighborhood address with traffic and safety concerns. The developer has placed money in escrow to help us with this project if it is approved. That evening, we received good information, but again, our plea for the entrance was not accepted. Each morning, I walk along Ocotillo with many of my neighbors, and I have tried to figure out a better solution. Last weekend, I prepared a petition, which I'm submitting to you tonight. I've gathered 37 signatures, primarily on 15th Place, but some on 15th Street. My petition states we are in support of the infill residential development if the access entry point along Ocotillo can be relocated with its current alignment with 15th Place and have it move west, the width of one housing unit, so that the gate's entrance can be offset and not aligned with 15th Place or 15th Street. I'll provide my petition to your clerk at this time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Murphy. Phyllis Rowe, you're next, up to 2 minutes, followed by Jennifer Riley.
I'm Phyllis Rowe, and I live at 6841 North 15th Place, and I've been there for 60 years. This new development has some problems, and the one that we're concerned about is we want to be sure that there's a good sidewalk on Ocotillo there before the bus bay, because there's a bus bay on 16th Street. A lot of children are there, and if they have a sidewalk there before the bus bay, it will make it safer for them. And there's an awful lot of cut-through traffic from Glendale. They're heading to the freeway, and it's bumper to bumper. It's really increased tremendously this year. And we need some changes made, so that we need some striping and some speed bumps, so that we have speed bumps on 15th Place, but they need to be restriped, and we may need some more speed bumps along the way to discourage people from going from Glendale down to Ocotillo, and they go very fast. We've got a lot of young children there, and we need to take care of that, so that it will discourage people from heavy speeding. And I believe that's the main issues that I have that I'm concerned with.
Good to see you, Ms. Rowe. Thank you for coming down and providing that important testimony. Jenny Riley, did you provide testimony? Followed by Carol Sorgi.
Hi, my name is Jenny Riling. I reside at 6708 North 13th Place. I actually have some items for the council members. I know I had emailed the petitions, but there are copies there as well as some photographs. Oh, I'm sorry. Here I am. Okay. My main concern in regard to this plan development would be the location of the ingress and egress set to be on Ocotillo Road. And what I have given to you is a petition that I have circulated in the neighborhood, 140 signatures of neighbors from 12th Way up to 15th Place. Again, asking the developer to move that ingress and egress off of Ocotillo onto 16th Street. I understand safety. I know that's their concern, and again, that's our major concern as well. I've lived in my home for over 20 years, and the concern of having more traffic brought through it is mind-boggling to me. This is a true neighborhood. We are neighbors that are out and about, walking, biking, walking our dogs, pushing strollers. There are people on these roads at all times, as you can see in the pictures. We are a front yard neighborhood, as Phil promoted during his term as mayor. We are neighbors that spend time together, walking to each other's homes, walking our kids to Granada Park or to Zoyo's. Our children are walking, skateboarding, biking to each other's homes and to the bus stops. We have 2 grade schools that have multiple stops in the neighborhood, with 8 of those being directly on Ocotillo. And as Phyllis said, we do already deal with a tremendous amount of cut-through traffic from Glendale Avenue. In the morning, eastbound traffic will back up from 16th Street as far west as 12th Way. In the afternoon and evening, those going westbound on Glendale back up starting at 15th Place. All of those cut-through traffic vehicles end up on Ocotillo. I just can't imagine another 200-plus vehicles from this new development also traveling primarily on Ocotillo. I know in past meetings I've been told the developer brings up safety issues for the new residents pulling out onto 16th Street. In my opinion, there is no difference from a new resident pulling out onto 16th Street from this development than as a current resident of the neighborhood pulling out onto 16th Street from Ocotillo, or someone pulling out from Sprouts or Walgreens onto Ocotillo. And since safety seems to be a big concern for both parties, I would encourage the council to keep in mind the larger concern for the safety of the entire neighborhood, especially for the large numbers of pedestrian traffic. Ocotillo is not a very wide street. There are no sidewalks or bike lanes. There are frequently multiple cars parked on either sides of Ocotillo, limiting available vehicle and pedestrian space, which I imagine will only increase due to the development. Lighting on the streets is very limited as well. Again, I've provided you the copies. There are also photos in there of a number of other residential developments on 16th Street from Missouri to Glendale that have their entry and exit directly onto 16th Street. And I'm not opposed to this development coming. I think it'll be an improvement for our neighborhood for sure. I am very concerned about the entry and exit being onto Ocotillo, and I would certainly hope that the council will take our neighbors' concerns into consideration before making your decision. Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming down and providing that testimony. Carol Sorgi, followed by Dan Trozzi.
My name is Carol Sorgi, and I live at 6837 North 15th Place. My husband and I have been there for about 20 years. I agree with the former speaker. I'm in favor of the development. I think it sounds very nice, but I'm concerned about egress and ingress all being on Ocotillo. The builders have recommended that one exit entrance be used on Ocotillo for the development. This means an additional, by their estimate, 210 more daily trips on our streets that are residential streets. Only 4 of the 11 streets that go off of Ocotillo at the present time have speed bumps to relieve this situation. We want the exit and entrance to be on 16th Street that was designated to handle traffic as an arterial street. There is also concern because the development is gated, and this allows for the possibility of the congestion of a line. We do not want the quality of life of our neighborhood threatened by this development. We truly believe that proper planning can prevent this. We believe that egress and ingress should be on 16th Street. Thank you for your consideration and your vote in our favor.
Thank you very much, Ms. Sorgi. Dan Trozzi, followed by John Murray.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. My name is Dan Trozzi. I live at 6746 North 12th Way. I just moved to this neighborhood 33 years ago. So I also am sort of a leadership position, and I had done a survey with a lot of emails that I have of a very diverse neighborhood of backgrounds, occupations, and 91% of the people responding to my survey are for the development. We don't have a problem with that. We have a problem with the access and egress onto Ocotillo, where we already have a problem. God bless Councilwoman Peggy Bilstein, 1998, with the Fight Back grant that included us trying to prevent cut-through traffic all the way from 12th Way to 16th Street. Ours is a 60-year-old neighborhood which was built with streets directly south, going south of Glendale. That's why we had a traffic issue then, and it's going to be compounded by the traffic study which the developers commissioned, which is sort of like having a tobacco company commission a medical institute to find out the benefits of smoking. But either way, I would say that they are saying, it wasn't a comparison between what goes out to 16th Street and what goes onto Ocotillo. It was just to say what the impact on Ocotillo is. There would be over 200 some vehicles a day, not to mention delivery vehicles and other vehicles that would need to come through the neighborhood. I know the big thing now is the safety card that everybody's going to talk about. Well, if you want to look at safety, then you have, and it's an issue if it goes out to 16th Street, then you have to look all the way up and down 16th Street to Missouri, because then you'd have to tell our Madison School to take all their entrances off of 16th Street, move them in through a neighborhood. Across the street from them, there's the Madison Place, 186-unit Meridian complex, main access right out to 16th. But what they do have is a street that goes off to the side, a smaller exit that goes out to Missouri. This doesn't have that. Now, on a fire department issue there, I wonder if that's a factor, where one major entrance could be closed. Also, I want to commend Councilman DeCiccio. I was requested to go to the Arcadia meeting about a month ago with 1,000 people all concerned with 500 vehicles intrusion into their neighborhood. And I thought you were pledging to try to help that neighborhood. Well, we're going to have over 200 and have different access problems. People do talk about traffic mitigation and calming. Where would that money come from? The city doesn't have open buckets of money that we can all just grab and put this stuff in there. Fight Back grants don't exist anymore as far as I know. So I'm fortunate we have what we have, but we are going to compound an existing problem, and we feel it should go all the access, egress and ingress off of 16th Street. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Trozzi. Mr. John Murray, followed by Mary Beth Moran.
Good afternoon, Mayor, City Council members. Thank you very much for hearing our neighborhood issues with this application submitted by Watt Development. My name's John Murray, and I've lived at 14th Street in Ocotillo for 25 plus years. I think you've received the memorandum of concern that originally went out, the petitions, and I just wanted to kind of reiterate that this neighborhood is an older single-story, single-family residence situated in an area with hardly any through streets. I don't know if that can be put back up again, but Ocotillo is the only east-west street between Glendale and Maryland that is a through street. There is one stop sign that is frequently ignored. There are no north-south streets that are through streets between 12th Street and 16th Street. The area is conducive to people, dog walking in the mornings and evenings. Watt Development is asking for you to change the current zoning, which would allow for 18 homes in that area, to 22 homes, which is about a 20% overbuild. And they're also asking to have 66 parking spaces in there. And they have the ingress and egress on Ocotillo. I see that they have moved that ingress and egress to the west, one house it looks like, which I'm not sure what the purpose was, I guess to keep people coming down 15th Street. You've heard that approximately 90% of the polled neighbors and residences are against the ingress and egress. They are not against the project itself that will lend itself to our area. As Mr. Trozzi talked, that by their own traffic study, They're going to introduce 200 vehicles a day into our neighborhood, and probably more than that in the 2 or 3 years of construction. I'll get down here. Anyway, so the original objection was a bus bench. They said they couldn't go out to 16th Street because of a bus bench. Well, maybe that can or can't be moved. Maybe that the safety issue would say that the preferred way to get out of there would be on Ocotillo. We don't think that's true. We don't see any difference between trying to turn right or left from Ocotillo Street onto 16th Street than you would if you're 150 or 200 feet south, which is where we think the ingress and egress can be. And if they can change that plot plan to reflect a further west ingress and egress, then I think that if they just rotate it 90 degrees and move that same ingress and egress south, the same thing would be accomplished. We could mitigate the entire traffic issue that their community is going to bring there by telling them to go out on 16th Street. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your testimony, Mr. Murray. Ms. Moran?
Hi, my name is Mary Beth Moran. I've lived in the city of Phoenix for 40 years. I moved to this neighborhood 10 years ago, and one of the large factors in my decision to move there was the fact that it was the most pedestrian neighborhood I've ever seen in the city of Phoenix. If we bring 200 cars through our neighborhood where there are no sidewalks and there are people walking dogs and babies in strollers, I just don't see how it's not going to erode the quality of the neighborhood. So I would please wish that you vote for the ingress and egress to take place on 16th Street for this project. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Shelton is opposed to the item, marked a card not wishing to speak. I'll make a note of that for the record. Thank you for being here. Mr. Bull, I indicated I'd leave you the opportunity at the end of hearing from those who are opposed to the project, the opportunity to respond, so now would be the time to do so.
Thank you, Mayor. Members of the council, do we have a PowerPoint clicker somewhere? Thank you. Ed Bull, 702 East Osborne, representing Watt Communities of Arizona. As you know, this is a vacant infill site that abuts an arterial street. We're requesting 22 single-family detached homes on this transition parcel. We're here with recommendations for approval from staff, from the village committee, from the planning commission, and we accept and would request your approval in accordance with staff's addendum report, which provides the modified site plan that we worked out after we had recommendations for approval from staff, the village, and the planning commission. Request to shift our driveway location from where it's shown here, which pretty much aligns with 15th Place, to there, where we shifted it west and had to go through various redesign and other processes to allow that to happen, is a direct result of neighbors that talked with us about that a little bit before, but mostly after the Planning Commission hearing and at a subsequent meeting at one of the speakers' houses where Kerry Wilcoxon came and talked with them about speed humps and other traffic calming processes. The purpose of that shift is to offset our driveway from 15th Place, where here it was offset some, here it's offset a whole lot more to the west. As we go on through the reasons for staff's recommendation for approval, which of course are in your report, they make the findings, we're in compliance with the general plan, we're compatible with other developments, and we're cleaning up a blighted property. That's all great. Staff's updated stipulations call for us to develop in accordance with that updated site plan that was on the screen a few minutes ago that shifts our driveway west, that offsets our driveway from 15th Place, and that's part of what we were asked to do, and I believe that that's exactly what the gentleman who presented the petition that I believe is in support of the development as long as we shift the driveway was asking us to do. The application itself with a shifted driveway is still 22 single-family detached homes on a vacant infill redevelopment site that abuts an arterial in not central Phoenix, but certainly urbanized Phoenix. We are curing existing problems in that several neighbors talked about there being a lack of sidewalks on Ocotillo. That's true. It will not be true along our frontage if we're allowed to develop this property. We are adding a sidewalk along Ocotillo. At the village committee, while it was acknowledged that there is an existing sidewalk along 16th Street, the sidewalk that exists today, which is in pretty decent condition, is attached to the curb. We were asked to detach that sidewalk from 16th Street and replace it with an entirely new one. We agreed to do so. We have adjusted this, changed that, listened to neighbors every step of the way, including having the follow-up neighborhood meeting focused on traffic mitigation after we had a recommendation for approval from the commission, the council, and staff. This is a list of neighborhood outreach. I can go through it in as much detail as you want, but we sure tried to talk with anyone and everyone before, during, and after the normal hearing processes. This is representative of signatures and support that reflects signatures that we'd gathered and then those that I believe that were submitted to you today along 15th Place, where the neighbors along 15th are saying, I think, they're supportive of our revised site plan that shifts that driveway to the west. There's abundance reasons why we don't have access directly to and from 16th Street. Some are listed here. I mean, just basic good land planning. We've learned in the past where we had single-family developments accessing directly to arterials is not very good for anybody. Providing access to a local street is safe. It's something that, as is indicated in this third dot point, we're only 22 single-family detached homes, and this intersection along 16th Street is not a desirable or safe kind of intersection to have for purposes of accessing directly to and from that street. In addition to that, we have the subdivision code, which I suppose could be read different ways, but the way that staff advises me it's to be read and explained at a neighborhood meeting is when you have the ability today to have a single-family residential development access a local street or a collector, access anything other than an arterial street, you should do so. Because we're talking about not only the safety of our residents coming and going, but we're talking about the safety and the traffic function of the arterial route. And that's before you even get into discussing the fact that we have an existing bus stop on our frontage and its twin going north on the other side. Bottom line, the city's traffic engineering people, our own traffic engineer, who's Don Cartier at CivTech, who many of you know, and the other professional staff at the city and our professional designers all believe that Ocotillo Road, under modern design, is the right place for this 22-lot, single-family detached home development to be accessed. That's the case before we even get to the bus stop. We can talk about traffic comparisons if you want to. People are talking about 200 additional trips and so on. It's not a clean slate like that. It's not like we're starting at 0 and going to 22 homes. Under the existing zoning, there could be at least 18. Under PRD, probably 20. We're requesting 22 under what we believe is a much better design with better open space, better streetscapes, and so on. Even at that, it's hard, really hard to see. You're going to have to trust me on this. It shows in the morning peak we would have 3 additional trips. In the afternoon peak, we have 4 additional trips as compared to the underlying zoning. I can go through as many slides as you want, but it's a very high quality, relatively expensive, like in the 500,000 plus range homes that are expected in this development. It is a very nice upgrade, we believe, to what's been somewhat of an eyesore in the 16th Street corridor, and it's something where we have listened to every neighbor on every issue, and we've agreed to as many things as we could agree with one exception. And my job would have been a lot easier 3 months ago if I could have said, yeah, sure, no problem. Let's have access directly to and from 16th Street. That wouldn't have been right. It wouldn't have been safe. It would have been contrary to your staff's professional opinions, our own traffic engineer's professional opinions, and I think contrary to your subdivision code. So on that issue, we could not agree. But on every other issue that we could with respect to sidewalks, streetscapes, open space, this and that, we have done everything we knew to do to be a good neighbor. In conclusion, if you want more information, I'll be happy to provide it. Otherwise, as I indicated at the outset, our request is that your council approve this single-family detached home infill development on this site, subject to the stipulations that are in staff's addendum report dated October 22nd, which by stipulation 1A requires us to shift our access to the west of 15th Place, as was shown on the site plan up there a few minutes ago. If you have questions, I'll do my best to answer them.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bull. That is all the cards I have for the public hearing portion of this matter. So with that, I will close the public hearing. Councilman DeCiccio, this is cases in your district. How do you wish to proceed?
Well, let me just cover a couple of things first, though, with staff. We're talking, I think, one additional home that would be placed here, correct, on the site compared to what it could have
Mayor,
been.
Councilman DeCiccio, the existing zoning would allow 18 homes by right, probably under the PRD option. The maximum you could get would be 21 units with density bonus. So in that scenario, if all the density bonuses were achieved, it would be one additional unit, but you don't know that specifically until you actually do the site planning process.
And just so that you know, too, I mean, let me just cover a couple of quick things. One, when you're looking at that, had they not had to go through the rezoning process, they would have been able to put their roadway right on Ocotillo. But at the end of the day, I don't think that there's anyone that's disputing the fact that it's a good project. It's going to be an enhancement to the neighborhood. It's all about whether or not the access should be on 16th Street. That's really where everything lies. If you look at how accommodating they've been, I mean, literally every time I've called, I said, we've got to find a way to deal with this and figure this one out. Mr. Murphy needed the roadway to be moved. And this is literally right after the approval process was done through the Planning Commission and the Village Planning Committee. And they were accommodating to that. They've done everything that they possibly can. The only problem that you run into is whether or not, and believe me, it'd be a lot easier for everybody. I mean, the developer wouldn't have had to put in the tens of thousands of dollars of improving that sidewalk, putting in monies, a sidewalk, and putting in monies for traffic mitigation. Wouldn't have had to do any of those things. And then there would have been one home different, but staff still would not have allowed an entryway in Ocotillo. And I just want you to think about this. And I know it's difficult for everyone because no one wants to see it this way, but at the end of the day, we've got an obligation. I would love to be able to say, hey, look, just get that done. And they would probably get that done at that point. But you've got a bus stop. And your entryway is going to be about 100 feet south of Ocotillo. So you've got a bus stop there. Then imagine this. You've got cars going out within 100 feet of each other, going in either direction like that through the lanes. It doesn't work. It just isn't going to be able to be done. And there's a safety issue dealing with that, of whether or not we would, as a council, even override the staff recommendation, which I don't even know if we can do because it's set in stone as a policy of where we go on this. But even if we did, we would be sitting in a position where somebody's life could be endangered sometime in the future, whether it's 3 months, 6 months, or even a few years from now. You cannot mix cars and vehicles heading in two different directions. It doesn't work that way. Even if you were going in the same direction, it's still problematic and still a safety issue. So when you look at that, there's just no way it's going to be done. So I'm going to make a motion to approve this based on, and clarify that stipulation number 5 should be number 22 on lots number 24. But the motion is to approve per memo and revised stipulation for Planning Development Director dated October 22nd, 2015, and adopt the related ordinance. And again, this would include the monies for the mitigation that Mrs. Rowe was talking about. The street would also be improved, or the sidewalk would be improved on both sides. The traffic mitigation of $5,000, and then moving the entryway to the west one house in order to accommodate the individuals that literally in the letter that they provided here, they'd be supportive of this if they were able to do that. So I think that they've gone over and above to try to do everything. It's literally a safety issue. It's one that's going to be, I don't know how else to do that when you've got all of the situations that are in that area, to be able to move it anywhere else but than where it is.
All right, so the motion is to approve per the memo and related stipulations from the Planning and Development Director dated October 22nd, 2015, and adopt the related ordinance. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion. We have a second. Are there any additional comments by members of this council?
I have
Councilwoman,
some
please.
questions.
Please, go ahead.
In the mitigations, will that include the striping, the speed bumps, and the sidewalk?
Mayor, Councilwoman Pastor, the development is already required to put in a 6-foot wide detached sidewalk along 16th Street, as well as a 5-foot sidewalk on the south side of Ocotillo Road. So that's already a requirement that's on the project, irrespective of the $5,000. The $5,000, as part of stipulation number 5, would be used to do traffic calming measures such as speed tables, traffic diverters, those types of things that would have to be done in conjunction with the neighborhood following the street transportation department's, traffic mitigation program.
They would have the resources to do it, but they would have to go out and do the petitions for speed hump just like any other neighborhood. It's not required as part of this.
Yeah.
Correct.
So my question, okay, so let me back up. So now that I just heard, they're going to be required now. There's a mitigation, but now they're going to be required to get the 100% or 75%, and I'm not sure what the percentage is, of petitions of wanting to have speed bumps in the neighborhood?
Mayor, Councilwoman Pastor, yes, that is correct. The stipulations are binding upon the developer, but they don't do anything to change the requirements that the City Council has established via the Street Transportation Department for the traffic mitigation program, so those all still have to be met.
Okay.
To be clear too, though, this is where the neighborhood's going to make the
Right.
decision of where they all go.
Right, but
Mayor, Councilwoman Pastor, I would just like to add that Kerry Wilcoxine is here if you guys have questions. He has met with the neighborhood and the developer before, as Mr. Bull mentioned, and he will be involved in how that money would be spent if this case was approved to make those things happen, pursuant to what the community would like to see happen.
Councilwoman? Do you have any from Kerry? Do you have any additional comments or questions?
I just want to be clear on what the process is in order to get speed humps, bumps, whatever we're calling them, speed tables. And I want to know about the striping.
Councilwoman Pastor, Mayor, City Council, the requirements for traffic calming would be the same after this development was, or if this development was approved and there was money put aside for this as they are today. The neighborhood would still have to go through the standard petitioning process for speed humps to get the approval of everyone within 100 feet of any proposed speed hump and 70% of an overall petition boundary. And then we would put the speed humps in where and when the residents wanted them. As far as the striping on the existing speed humps, we can, I think that was the question, we can certainly look at that. Once we build a speed hump, the city maintains it for, or in perpetuity. So we do that anyway, and it doesn't go against any kind of traffic mitigation set aside.
Okay. And then my second question is I want to get very clear to the safety issue. The safety issue as to why we can't go onto 16th Street, why we're coming off Ocotillo.
Sure. The safety issue, and by the way, we have spoken about that in both internally and externally. Whenever you can have slower traffic mixing with slower traffic, that reduces the likelihood of injury. Having traffic slow down for a driveway into a gated or residential community on a busy arterial street, a higher speed arterial street, automatically sets up the conditions where you have a higher likely change in velocity, higher rear end possibility. Having the entrance to a lower speed development street off of a lower speed local street reduces the likely difference in velocity and would reduce any crash risk and any injury potential if there were crashes.
So is Ocotillo a local collector? Is it a local street, or is it a collector street, or what type of street is Ocotillo?
Councilwoman Pastor, Ocotillo is a local street.
So can you tell me the difference between a local and a collector?
Yes, Councilwoman Pastor, the difference between a local and collector typically has to do with two things. One is location. Collector streets are typically located in every half mile. Arterial streets are located every mile. Collector streets are typically wider as well, so they're built a little differently. Both can still have residential properties fronting or siding on them, but typically, I shouldn't say typically, by city ordinance, local streets are always signed for 25 miles per hour. Collector streets can be signed for as high as, I think, 35 miles per hour. But those are the main differences. Collector streets also serve a different function within the street grid. They are intended to collect traffic from local streets and funnel them onto the arterial streets, and then vice versa. Local streets are more residential in nature.
Okay, thank you. It just reminds me of Willow, and so that's why I'm doing some research on this, because this is very similar to some of the dynamics that we're having in Willow. And also, I know this area very well due to the fact that my son's friends live in these areas. And so I understand what happens between 7th Street to 16th Street with all the school zones going and coming. And so that's why I'm asking my questions. Thank you.
Councilwoman Pastor, Mayor, and Council, if I would, I've also offered and would continue to do so to offer to come out to the neighborhood at some point now or in the future and do a comprehensive traffic study in the sense of traffic counts, work out where and when speed humps can be installed, and work with the residents to put in as many speed humps, traffic mitigation measures as they can and as they want.
Thank you. And then I have another question. This one is to the developer or the zoning attorney, Mr. Bull. I'm a little confused as to when you had the slide of the yellow petitions.
I don't know where it went.
Where it stated like 15th Street, that you had signatures from 15th Street, and how to do something with the petition. Are these, my question is, because we have petitions here, and they're also from 15th Street. And so I'm just.
Same signatures.
Oh, they're the same signatures.
Are you talking about 15th Street or 15th Place?
I'm asking about these signatures that also have.
The neighborhood had presented, neighborhood leaders in opposition to the case had presented us a series of signatures indicating opposition to the ingress egress. I think that's what the councilman was referring to.
I had a slide up there, this slide, that identifies, with this being our site, obviously with this being our site.
Councilman, is that the slide that you were hoping to see?
Yes, yes.
Okay. These identify properties to the south and the west, which a long time ago had signed signatures in support. These are signatures that I understand were gathered by neighbors on 15th Place, this being 15th Place, that were indicating they'd be in support if we agreed to move our access west, which we did. So that's the basis for this map. I think you have, I don't know what other signatures you have in front of you that are in opposition, where I believe the primary focus of that opposition is they want us to move our access to 16th Street. These people on 15th Place, as I understand it, are supportive of this redevelopment if we moved our access point to about here, which is exactly what's reflected in staff's supplemental report.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Councilman Pastor. Councilman Gallego?
Thank you. Questions for Carrie. And congratulations on your leadership role on our city's successful Tiger Grant. So a lot of work into that.
Thank you.
You spoke for me very persuasively about the safety impacts to cars. Phyllis had brought up questions about pedestrians, particularly students in their commute. And so could you speak to the safety impacts for pedestrians?
Councilwoman Gallego, Mayor, council members. There are certainly there are pedestrians that use this this road now. There are sidewalk gaps existing today, which in many cases means the pedestrians are walking in the streets. There is existing traffic calming. We don't know what the speeds are. We don't believe there are any existing pedestrian crash issues that exist today. We don't believe that adding the additional traffic from this development onto the street would make that more or less likely. What we do know, though, is that crashes on the arterial streets expose pedestrians, including transit riders, to the same type of, or actually an increased type of crash risk, such as you would have if there is a low-speed entryway on off of 16th Street into this development. If that answers your question, I'm not sure that I did answer it, though.
Well, she was speaking about commutes to schools, and that wasn't as much on my radar screen, so I'm not sure where the schools are.
Yes, there are schools all over the area, obviously, and there are schools that are good schools, but there are also schools that have a lot of walking population. So we're aware that there are quite a few pedestrians, both school age and non-school age, on the street, on both Ocotillo and the north-south streets. Having that many more cars interacting with pedestrians, again, it increases the chances, but not significantly. And it wouldn't necessarily make the streets less pedestrian friendly. Certainly the addition of sidewalks would increase pedestrian friendliness of the street, but it wouldn't necessarily make it any worse than it is or more dangerous than it is now.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councilwoman Pastor?
Carrie, in looking at these pictures, and I don't know if it's possible, but may I suggest that possibly maybe striping a pedestrian way, striping or a line, or in order to provide a buffer for those pedestrians that are walking, very similar to Willow, on how there's a striping on Willow where they're able to walk, but that's up to the neighbors.
Councilwoman Pastor, I have looked at the photos now, and yes, it is a possibility. We could put in either an edge stripe or potentially a bike lane if the neighbors want that. Many times we get pushback on any kind of striping inside neighborhoods, but that would be one of the options we could offer to residents. I mean, that's regardless of any other traffic mitigation measures that are put in.
All right, thank you very much. Any additional comments by members of this council? Okay. One more time, apologize. If you would like to have a very short comment, I will grant that, and then we're going to take a vote I assume it's addressed to any of the issues that were just immediately brought up by members of the council?
Yes, they are. One is, I understand the mitigation that they had offered us was $5,000. First of all, I was on the committee that did the speed humps in our neighborhood 16 years ago. We have the maximum amount of speed humps on Ocotillo allowed at this time. There is no more that can be done regarding that traffic calming on there. $5,000 honestly goes nowhere. $1,500 per speed hump. If in the only place we could put speed humps are on the north-south streets in that area. And there are 8 school bus stops in our neighborhood, strictly on Ocotillo. There are numerous other ones on other side streets, but there are 8 specifically on Ocotillo on a daily basis. And I have a question to Councilman DeCiccio. You made the comment that the dangers, the safety to the residents pulling out 100 and some odd feet from the bus stop. What would be the difference of the residents pulling out 100 feet to the north of that bus stop off of Ocotillo? The north of the bus stop. You made a comment that south of the bus stop, if their egress is placed there would be safety to the people pulling out.
You do,
So I'm
but
not
you don't
understanding.
have 2 exits going out where vehicles can go in either direction. Believe me, if we could have moved this thing and not had a safety issue, this would have occurred already. It's like Ed said earlier. I mean, and if there was a way to get that done that way, we would do that, but it's not safe the way that the neighborhood wants to see this done. And if you look at it, you're talking about an entryway literally a few hundred feet down from 16th Street, whether or not they're going to be coming in your neighborhood. I get that, but what ends up happening when you start mixing cars that are going fast on 16th Street, which they are, and sometimes a lot faster than the speed limit, and you mix it with cars that are slowing down automatically, and then you put another entry over there, you're going to have a problem. Either it happens now or happens later. And it could easily be somebody that lives in the neighborhood that could be in a problem situation. Doesn't necessarily have to be the people that live in this area or in that housing development. It could be someone who then ends up having an accident with those individuals. And if there was a way to do it, we would have done it. It just isn't going to happen that way. And you're talking about 1 additional home, 7, whether it's 1 or 3 additional homes that would have been able to come out already on the street. So the question is whether or not you want to, if you feel comfortable on your own, which I assume some people do. I don't. Again, at the end of the day, it comes down to whether or not it's a safety issue. It would have saved a lot of time. The developer's gone back and forth with so many different requests, back and forth. They've had delays. They've put out more and more money on this thing. Everybody would have accommodated that by this point.
No. Well, unfortunately, the entire neighborhood had not been notified of any of this from the get-go. You're saying a time frame? There's a majority of our neighborhood that was not aware of this situation. So I know one of his slides said something about notifying 200 and some odd residents. I don't believe that's the case because there was nobody on the street that I live on or the streets that I talked to on 13th Street and 14th Street over that were aware of it until I walked with the petition.
I don't know.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Riley, very much for that important additional information. Any additional comments by members of this council? All right, so we have the motion from Councilman DeCiccio. We have a second. Roll call.
DeCiccio. Gallego.
Yes.
Gates.
Yes.
Nowakowski. Pastor.
Yes.
Waring.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Valenzuela.
Yes.
Mayor Stanton.
Yes, so the motion passes on a 9-0 vote, passes unanimously. That's all the business we have before this city council on our formal agenda. We still have 2 cards for public comment, which are part of our actual agenda. Blue Crawley, you have been patient and sat through our entire meeting. You have the 3 minutes to provide testimony and citizen comment. Is Joanne Scott Wood still here? Yes. Then you're next. Mr. Crawley, the floor is yours.
Thank you. What I bring up usually is transportation, and of course it is again this time. I'd like the I-10 terminal that used to have future transit facilities, since it is a City of Phoenix unit. What's happening with that since you took the sign down? Is the City of Phoenix ever going to complete that transit facility? Another one would be the one at the airport. Now, My understanding was it was going to take $500 million to run the rail through Terminal 4, and we felt that that was too much money, so instead we built the SkyTrain for $1.5 billion. I believe that we could have spent the money better on that. I'd also like to point out that we're not using paint as a weapon. With all of your city improvements, I need you to put my bike lanes there and my crosswalks. And I'd also like to say, Feliz Compañeros, you know who you are. That's happy birthday in Spanish. And there are 2 on the council that are having birthdays. And lastly, I need you to get rid of the penalty of $2 for people using the bus. Why do you have to chastise us and say that the reason we want you to pay $2 extra on the bus is we don't want you to do that? Hello? At the same time, the RPTA is, the $2 extra that you pay on the bus when you buy your ticket on the bus is so that it discourages people from using that. Hello? That's Councilman Nadowski, it's totally, and then they say that the citizenry asked for it that way. No, we don't need to be chastised. You need to take that $2 fine off the bus. And lastly, with the RPTA, and I wish Stella was still here, they put out a memo that said, we're not going to put ticket dispensers at the transit stations. Hello? Well, we brought it up, said, no, you need to deal with that and bring it back. Now, they've waited 3 months to do it, and so far they're saying, well, the way we're going to put them out, we're going to have a criteria, and one of the criteria is we're not going to have any transit dispensers within a quarter mile of our vendors, which make 10%. So I'm just wondering why we have to make sure that our vendors are making 10% on our bus tickets rather than that money going directly into the system, 1. And 2, if that be the case, why don't we make it retroactive? And how many of the transit dispensers at the light rail stops would have to be removed?
All right.
Most of them. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. And let the record reflect, when you said Councilman Nadowski, I think you're referring to Councilman Nowakowski. That was so 25 years ago. All right, here we go. Let's see, Miss Joanne Scott Woods, you're last, please.
My name is Joanne Scott Woods. I am a co-coordinator of the People Demanding Action Community Coalition and a representative for the family of Remain Brisbane. On August 18th, 8 representatives from our coalition, which is a group of activists and members and leaders of 22 social justice organizations, met with the mayor's team, which consisted of Chiefs of Staff Seth Scott and Ruben Alonzo. We presented 9 talking points on criminal justice reform, which we called the Arizona Justice Package. I was going to give you copies. I've had technology problems for over 24 hours. I got 3 hours of sleep. So I will email those to you. But what I wanted to talk to you was one of the programs was called an early intervention system. And I would like you to consider it today and would appreciate, if possible, a response from Chief Yonner if our city has one similar of its caliber to that of the Seattle Police Department. Seattle's system includes criteria like use of force incidents, vehicle collisions, missed court dates, lawsuits, and complaints. Each of the criteria has a threshold. For instance, 7 use of force incidents in 6 months, and 3 complaints a year. When an officer reaches a threshold, their supervisor and other department staff conduct a review of the officer's on-the-job performance. The system is not designed to be punitive or disciplinary. Depending on the circumstances, the review might lead to more training, a different assignment, or counseling. For cities who have undergone federal police reforms, establishing a well-functioning early intervention system has proven to be a crucial step in completing the process. We owe it to our citizens and officers to save both lives and careers to adopt this system. Let's confront our city's crisis and fund solutions for both better policing and funding our police force. Now it is time to meet and keep both citizens and officers safe. Since 2010, we've been aware of this crisis. Both citizens and peace officers are depending on
Thank
you
you.
as a council. It's time to take action
Thank you, Ms. Woods. You
for
have the 3
funding
minutes.
an adequate, 4 more words.
Please.
Thank you. An adequate police force and community policing practices.
Thank you, Ms. Woods. Thanks for your testimony. That's all the cards I have for citizen requests. All the business is done before the city council. This meeting is adjourned.